It's in all our interests for the Eurozone to have the right governance and structures to secure a successful currency for the long term. Britain understands that, and we won't stand in the way of those developments as long as we can be sure that there are mechanisms in place to ensure that our own interests are fully protected. Let me explain what I mean. There are today two sorts of members of the European Union. There are Euro members and non-Euro members. The changes which the Eurozone will need to implement will have profound implications for both types of member. So non-Euro members like Britain, which are outside the Eurozone, need certain safeguards in order to protect the single market and our ability to decide its rules, and to ensure that we face neither discrimination nor additional costs from the integration of the Eurozone. Because the European Union and the Eurozone are not the same thing. And those of us who are in the EU but outside the Eurozone need that accepted. We need a British model of membership that works for Britain and for any other non-Euro members. And this should be perfectly possible. The European Union is a family of democratic nations whose original foundation was, and remains, a common market. There's no reason why the single currency and the single market should share the same boundary any more than the single market and Schengen. So the EU needs flexibility to accommodate both those inside and outside the Eurozone, both those who are contemplating much closer economic and political integration, and those countries like Britain which will never embrace that goal. Now, this is a matter of cardinal importance for the United Kingdom, because if the European Union were to evolve into a single currency club, where those outside the single currency are pushed aside and overruled, then it would no longer be a club for us. We need this issue fixed so that the UK is not obliged to fight a series of running battles which would only corrode trust amongst member states. And we have to make sure that there's a point to being in the EU but not in the Eurozone, and that that position does not turn a country into a rule taker instead of a rule maker. And now is the time to do that. So as part of our renegotiation, I'm asking European leaders to agree clear and binding principles that protect Britain and other non-Euro countries, and a safeguard mechanism to ensure that those principles are respected and enforced. Those principles should include the following: recognition that the EU is a union with more than one currency, that there should be no discrimination and no disadvantage for any business on the basis of the currency of their country, that the integrity of the single market must be protected, that as the Eurozone moves ahead, any changes it decides to make, like creation of a banking union, for instance, must be voluntary for non-Euro countries, never compulsory, that taxpayers in non-Euro countries should never bear the cost for operations to support the euro as a currency, and that just as financial stability and supervision has become a key area of competence for the Eurozone and institutions like the ECB, so financial stability and supervision is also a key area of competence for national institutions, like the Bank of England, for non-Euro members. And of course, that any issues that affect all member states must be discussed and decided by all member states.